If you go to prison, you should anticipate going into an environment that is very different from any other place that I know of in the United States. I would frequently describe it as close as we come to communism in the United States. That's what life is like in prison. And when I'm making that assessment, I am using this assumption that I learned about communism while I was growing up, that there is no private property, that the state is more powerful than the individual, that the state is going to tell you where to work, how much you could eat. It's going to provide you with an allowance. It's going to give everybody according to their needs. Okay, that's prison. Prison, the administrators are going to tell you where to live, what to eat, with whom you can communicate. They're going to tell you what you can read, basically, with whom you can associate. So there's a lot of things that are very different from in anywhere else in the United States. And it's important that you know, even in that environment, you can create a pathway to thrive. But you don't need a prison consultant to help you. What you need to do is learn how to live as if you're the CEO of your life. Meaning, you've got to define success as the best possible outcome. That's the first step. The second step is you've got to create a plan that's going to help you get from where you are today to where you want to go in the days, weeks, months, years, and decades ahead. And I know that your objective is to get the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. Certainly, you can work to influence that outcome. But you've got to be able to put priorities in place. So in your plan, you're doing the things that you need to do at the right time. And then you need to develop your tools, tactics, and resources that are going to accelerate your path. Those are the lessons that leaders taught me. It helped me get through 9,500 days in prison. More importantly, it helped me come back to society and build a life of meaning and relevance and dignity, achieving financial independence so that now I get to do what I want to do. And what I want to do is change the outcomes of America's prison system so that more people have an opportunity to emerge successfully with their dignity intact and with opportunities to thrive. But in order to do that, I have to help as many people as I can learn the same lessons that leaders taught me. And that requires you to begin, as Stephen Covey would say, begin with the end in mind. Understand that you've got to take first steps first. Understands that you're going to be focused on the result that you want to achieve, and then figure out, okay, what steps do I have to take to get there? And one of the first steps you have to take starts right now by using all of the free resources we make available at Prison Reforcers. Everything is free. Okay, I really discourage anybody from wasting thousands of dollars in hiring a so-called prison consultant, because most of those people served like 1 year or 2 years in one single facility. And while they were there, it's unlikely that they did anything that makes them unique, extraordinary, or compelling. So they come home and they can't have a hard time finding a job, and then they try and prey upon people who are vulnerable and trying to make it through, when in all reality, you should learn all of this on your own, and you should have develop the confidence that you can do it, that you don't need anybody to help you if, God forbid, you're facing a sentencing hearing. So let's start in this series of our continuing ongoing self-directed lessons by talking about, well, what happens when you first surrender to the prison system? Okay, so I am going to assume that there's two ways that you can get there. I did not get there by surrendering. I got there because I was arrested on August the 11th, 1987. And when I was arrested, I was locked in solitary confinement. And from solitary confinement, I went through all the judicial proceedings. So I was in there for a year. And then finally, I transitioned to a high security penitentiary where I remained for 7 to 8 years. Then from there, I went to medium security prisons. From there, I went to a low security prison. Then from there, I went to a series of minimum security camps. And after 9,500 days, I concluded my obligation to the Bureau of Prisons on August the 12th, 2013. But this isn't about me. This is about you. This is about what can you do today to start sowing seeds for the best possible outcome. Well, I want to tell you what's going to happen when you get to prison. So if you understand what's going to happen when you get there, you might have a little bit more confidence in what you need to do to make things better. Okay, you're going to get there, and the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to go through what's called the intake process, and that doesn't matter were arrested and held in pretrial detention in a jail or someplace. Eventually, you're going to get to a BOP facility, and you're going to go through the intake process. So when you go through the intake process, it's really rather perfunctory. You should expect that you will not bring any property with you. Okay, I'll talk about what you can bring with you, but for the purposes of this video, just assume you are going to surrender all of your personal property. If you walk in there with obviously you're going to go in there with your clothing, they're going to take your clothing and they're going to give you prison issue clothing. You can bring with you things like reading glasses. You could bring with you legal papers. You could bring with you a Bible or a Torah or your religious text if it's the Quran. You could bring that with you, but everything has to be like less than $100. That's the same policy today as it was when I first went in there. So a plain wedding band, not anything with diamonds. Once you get processed in there, the first thing that's going to happen is they may lock you in this solitary cell or a cell with a few people, and they're going to pass you some forms for you to fill out. And this is like self-directed medical screening. They're going to ask you about health questions, what vaccinations you've had, what history you've had with specific diseases. They're going to ask you if you have any psychological complications or mental health complications. They're going to ask you about your education. Then they're going to go through the process of fingerprinting you and giving you a little identification, red little card that's kind of like a driver's license, so to speak, that has your registration number and your photograph, your name, your height, your weight, hair color, eye color, that kind of thing. And that's going to be your ID card, and then you're going to wait in there for a while. Then during that process, they're going to start interviewing you. So a series of staff members will come and talk with you and ask you some questions. It's very perfunctory. This is not the time to start advocating for yourself for what you want, but you basically just want to be polite. They are basically checking off the boxes. Okay, they are just making sure that they're admitting you, that you are who you say you are, and that you're in the right place, and that they're gonna schedule you for all the things that will happen once you get into the prison. Then they're going to take you into a different room, and they're going to strip search you. They're going to look in all of your body's orifices and ask you to do some things that you might consider dehumanizing. Big deal. It's just part of the journey. You get through this journey, you get through that process. They're going to pass you. Think of like a military-esque type of onboarding system, I'd guess. They're going to pass you prison garb. Typically, it's going to be either a coveralls type of a one-size-fits-all uniform. It may be khakis, green, or a sandy in color, maybe orange in color, depending on what your security level is, and so on and so forth. And then eventually they're going to move you over to the general population or to solitary housing. I went to solitary housing and I was there for a year. I didn't know any different. So for me, it was just part of the journey. And but most people don't go to solitary housing. What you want to do is you want to prevent the possibility of going to solitary housing by asking your attorney to check in with the marshals and the BOP to make sure that all paperwork is already at the facility. I would say 9 times out of 10, everything works out just fine. You get checked in and you get processed into the facility. Now, in the facility, there has been some things that have taken place before you got there. In the Bureau of Prisons, they have what's called decentralized processing. So there is an office in Grand Prairie, Texas, where people have looked at your judgment and commitment, or your judgment order, the judge's statement of reasons, and your pre-sentence investigation report, and they've assigned you to a specific facility. Okay, that facility is going to be consistent with your security needs. So you may be, there's different security levels in the Bureau of Prisons, starting with, say, detention center, which is considered admin security. So all levels are in a detention center. Then there is the general population, which is going to include minimum security camps, which has the lowest amount of security, low security prisons, which is kind of like a camp, but it has a fence around it and a little bit more structure, a lot more structure really than a camp. And then you've got a medium security prison with a little bit more security, double fences, barbed wire in between the fences, some more security inside of the prison, more staff to inmate ratio, more secure housing unit. And then you've got high security, which is probably the most, I would consider the most volatile of all of the prisons. That's the United States Penitentiary. And then you've got AdMax, which is Supermax prison. There's only one of those in the United States. And then you've got a series of kind of like specialized populations like witness protection programs, perhaps. There's the transit center in Oklahoma. But most people will serve the majority of their sentence in a regular prison. And when they're in that regular prison, there's a culture that exists, and that culture is going to depend on the security level. So I started in high security prisons and then moved down from high to medium to low to camp. So I experienced the entire gamut of security ranges and served significant amounts of time in every security level. And I will tell you that the stress level comes down significantly every time, at least in my case, every time I drop from a penitentiary to a medium, there's a massive difference in stress that comes off of your shoulder. And when you get from a medium to a low, massive level of stress that comes off of your shoulder. And when you get to a camp, well, camp doesn't feel like prison at all for somebody who's been in other security levels. But it's still stressful because you're away from the people you love and the people who love you. So you have to really understand, how do I live in that environment? Well, you live in there effectively by understanding what's going to come. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Sorry about that. Then they're going to go through what's called the initial orientation. The initial orientation is like the first generally about 35 days of your time in prison. And during that period of time, you might have to do some menial chores. You might not have to do anything at all, but go through a bunch of meetings, like with health services, psychology, facilities, all kinds of people you have to meet, case managers, and so on and so forth. And but again, this is not the time to start advocating, say, when can I get out? This is the time to seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. You do yourself a great disservice by going in there and in the first 30 days start arguing why you shouldn't be there. Okay? Every person in prison wants the same thing that you want. They want to get out. I use this analogy that I stole from I forgot the guy's name, but a marketing guru who wrote this book, The Purple Cow. And it basically is saying, if you're driving down the road and you see a pasture with a lot of cattle on it, nobody pays attention. But if you see a purple cow, everybody stops and looks. Well, when you're going into the prison system, regardless of how successful you've been on the outside or how bad you've been on the outside, when you go into the prison system, you're just a cow. To the staff, you're just one of the 1,500 people that are in that prison. You're just one of them. And your job is to become a purple cow. But in order to become a purple cow in the right way, you really have to understand the environment, and you have to work to build a very solid path. So they're going to want to learn about the facility's rules. They're going to give you this handbook that's going to talk about inmate rights and responsibilities. They're going to talk about the disciplinary code. You're going to learn about team meetings. You're going to want to do everything that staff asks you to do, but really spend this time learning about the prison. Now, you'll also want to learn about the custody and classification system. Now, there is a tremendous amount to cover here, and you can find answers to all of these questions if you visit our website, which I can show you right here. You just go to the homepage of the website, and you'll see that we have all kinds of information. But what's I think really, you could spend 200 hours going through this site, and there's going to still be stuff that you didn't see. But what you need to see is this thing down here on the lower right corner. So when I'm talking about matters that you don't really understand, you could just click that tool. This is our AI bot that we continue to train every week with new information. Enter your information here. Michael Santos, right? Michael at prisonprofessors.org. Boom, and I agree and get answers to your questions. If I say something or I want to ask a question like, what is a team meeting in federal prison? Just be specific. What is a team meeting in federal prison? Boom, and just click that and it'll think for a little bit. And while I'm sitting here talking with you, you're going to see that what it's doing right now, our AI tool, is it's scouring all of the information on our website, which is the entire code of federal regulations, all of the lessons that I have written, everything I've done since I've gotten out of prison and while I was in prison, and then it'll give you an explanation based on that. If this prompts you to ask another question, just ask another question, okay? And this is a great tool, but I want you to use these tools to educate yourself. Too many people waste money hiring these people that fancy themselves as prison consultants. And frankly, those people they don't have the depth and breadth of experience to truly guide you on everything that's coming. You have to learn. The more you learn, the more effective you are going to be once you get into the prison and you start navigating your way around, because it takes a lot of navigating to put yourself into the position for the best possible outcome. There are two things that I think are going to be really important for you. Maneuvering your way into the right bunk assignment and maneuvering your way into the right job assignment, because this is your time, right? There's 24 hours in a day. You're going to sleep for, 6 or 7 of those hours. Okay. Everybody, you can do that at home. You can do that in there. That's what you're doing. Okay. The prison's going to control 6 or 7 of those hours, telling you to do certain things or other. And you want to try to influence what that is. And then the remainder of the time is your own. That's your time to be the CEO of your life. That's your time to begin architecting a strategy that will make you a purple cow, that will differentiate you from everybody else and put you on a better pathway to the best possible outcome. So the more you learn, the better off you are going to be. But you should anticipate that the staff are going to assign you to a bunk assignment. I want you to learn how to advocate for yourself to get the best bunk assignment. And that's not always easy. If you read Earning Freedom, Conquering a 45-Year Prison Sentence, or you ask the chat bot, hey, how did Michael navigate from one security to a level or to another, or move his way into one prison? Just ask the thing and it'll tell you, hey, this is how I did it. I'm not going to tell you I have all the answers, but I had a successful journey going through 26 years in prison. And more importantly, it helped me become successful on the other side of the journey. You can do the same. But you need to develop that CEO mindset where you're coming up with a plan. You recognize that you've got to stay calm, humble, and observant. And you've got to understand that there are always more opportunities in the future than in the past. Your job is not to try and run the television room or control other people in prison or even be concerned with why other people are there. Your job is to take care of you, to be the most powerful self-advocate possible. And that requires you first to open your eyes and learn and observe, create a body of work and resources that will help you. I've written a lot about that in our profile section, why I believe you should be developing a personal profile. And I've spoken with you a great deal about using all of the resources on prisonprofessors.org and memorializing your journey. That's the strategy that worked for me, and it's the reason I always make 3 promises. I'll never lie to you. I'll never ask you to do anything I didn't do. And 3, I'll never charge you a penny. And the reason I won't charge you a penny is because I believe in you, and I believe that you could be your best advocate just as I was my best advocate. If you need somebody to talk to, before you go hiring a prison consultant that's going to promise you a bunch of nonsense, I would encourage you to register for the free webinars that my sponsor offers. That's Justin Paperny, and you can check that out at whitecollaradvice.com/nonprofit. You register for those webinars and you can ask your questions. I'm not available to ask questions because I'm always focused on changing the system to bring you home. And that's what we want. We want great results. So I want you to focus on what you have to do. I will focus on what I have to do. And together we'll work to be the change we want to see in the world. My name is Michael Santos. I am the founder of Prison Professors, and I believe in you.